We'll go ahead and get started. How's everybody doing today? Good? Excellent. You excited? You have to look at boring old me for a few minutes. Then we'll see some really cool stuff. Then we'll see some even cooler stuff talking to our friends on the ship. All right. Well, hello. I'm very excited to have you all join us here for a live look at the amazing science happening out on a big ship in the Gulf of Mexico right now. So I've hosted quite a few of these connections, mostly online, but it's extra special for me to be able to share this important work with my local community here in Galveston in person. So thank you for coming. If you don't know me, my name is Sasha Francis, and I actually used to be a penguin and seal biologist here at Moody Gardens for about 5 years. So I love that I've been able to continue working with the great staff here for opportunities like this. I'll be your host today, and I'm the Education and Outreach Manager for the Mesophotic and Deep Benthic Communities Restoration Projects. And we're working to restore deep seafloor coral habitats in the Gulf of Mexico that were injured by the 2010 Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And I work for National Marine Sanctuary Foundation. If you have any questions following this program, I will be sticking around out there. So please feel free to hang out and chat with us. So you heard me say Mesophotic and Deep Benthic Communities Restoration. That's a lot of big words. It's a mouthful. So we're going to kick things off by talking about what that means, what habitats look like down there in the Gulf, and why some of them have needed our help. So after a quick intro video in just a moment, we will touch on how Moody Gardens helps support this important work, and then get connected to the scientists at sea shortly. So raise your hand if you've ever wondered how people work in deep sea environments. Okay, some of you know everything, I think, already. Cool. I wondered too before I started this work. It's pretty awesome. So we're gonna get started so you can learn all about it. All right, so we have a little video to start here to show you some great footage. So as you go deeper into the ocean, like this underwater robot you see here, called a remotely operated vehicle or ROV, less and less sunlight is able to penetrate the water. Around 160 feet down, you reach the mesophotic zone, which literally means middle light, and it's sometimes referred to as the twilight zone. As you travel even deeper, you'll eventually reach a point where there's no sunlight at all. In addition to this change in light, the water also gets colder and there's much higher pressure. Despite the low light, cold temperatures, and high pressure environment, there are incredible ecosystems that call seafloor at these depths home. Colorful corals and sponges are the foundation of these ecosystems, providing habitat for the many fish and invertebrates you see here. These deep sea ecosystems are found all over the world, including in the Gulf of Mexico, which is actually where all this beautiful video footage is from, believe it or not. There's still so much we have to learn about the deep sea, because exploring these depths can be difficult, requires expensive, highly technical equipment, and unique skills. However, we do know the deep sea is the largest habitat on Earth. The number of species and abundance of life that depend on these habitats may rival the colorful coral reefs found in shallow coastal waters or tropical rainforests on land. Unfortunately, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill in April 2010 dealt a heavy blow to Gulf communities on land and at sea. 11 people lost their lives, and natural resources, wildlife, and habitats across the Gulf were severely impacted. Restoration is particularly challenging for the deep coral habitats that were injured because of how far from shore and how deep they are, and because of how much we still have to learn about them. As a result, 4 restoration projects are currently underway to help us better understand and restore these seafloor ecosystems from 160 feet to thousands of feet below the surface. These 4 projects are mapping new areas and developing better maps of the seafloor in the Gulf of Mexico so we know where these coral habitats are found. They're also learning more about the species that live in these habitats and how they may be connected across the Gulf of Mexico. ROVs like this one are particularly helpful to get incredible visuals of what lives at these depths that humans can't always reach. And we're also collecting samples and testing different methods to help corals grow and reproduce in the wild and in labs in order to help replace corals impacted by the oil spill, which is where Moody Divers come in. You'll hear about that in a moment. We're also working to reduce the threats that these ecosystems face and connect restoration work to people like you and opportunities like this. This work is made possible by the Deepwater Horizon Open Ocean Trustees, including the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, the U.S. Geological Survey, or USGS, and the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, plus many partners, including a large number of academic institutions and non-governmental organizations. So I hope you enjoyed that little sneak peek of all the different habitats we're working with here. So speaking of great organizations that are partnering with us on these projects, I want to take just a few minutes here before we connect to the ship to talk about how Moody Gardens has contributed to this restoration work. So Jake, where'd you run away to? Oh, you're over there. Come on up, Jake. We're going to hear firsthand about some Jake adventures. So Jake, can you introduce yourself for folks that might not know you in your title here at Moody Gardens?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Jake.
Fantastic. Awesome. Don't go anywhere. So I know you've assembled an awesome civilian technical dive team to help with coral sample collection, placing different sediment tiles on the sea floor to help us test what new corals might like to grow on out there. And I've also assisted with monitoring the growth of coral fragments that have been placed out there. Can you tell us what other organizations are part of this dive team and how you're able to dive deeper than regular scuba divers?
Yeah, absolutely.
And can you tell us how your system works for you to stay down longer and go deeper?
Absolutely.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for supporting our restoration work and sharing some insight with our community here. Jake will be hanging out outside the theater when we wrap up. If anybody wants to get a closer look at the dive gear and ask more questions to the dive team, there's a few other divers out there as well, like Chris here. Hey, Chris, he's a great photographer for underwater, gets us lots of cool pics. All right, guys, thank you so much. And be sure to visit them outside when we wrap up. All right, so also, thank you, Jake. Beautiful. Yes. Big thanks to Moody Gardens for the support and to National Marine Sanctuary Foundation, who's been able to work with this team here to get that funding to them to do this work. So, like I said, Jake will be out there after. Also outside the theater, our friend Taylor over here. Taylor, give everybody a wave. Fabulous. We'll be sharing more information on the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary, so stop by there to visit Taylor. So speaking of the sanctuary, the ship we're connecting with in a moment is currently working in and around the sanctuary. This area is home to some healthy habitats that can serve as reference sites to help us understand how to restore areas injured by the oil spill. And our friends at Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary have a great long-term data set for lots of places all around the sanctuary. So it's really helpful to our team. Who here has heard of Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary? Hey, that's pretty good. Taylor's doing a good job. She does education and outreach. Fantastic. Who's ever gone scuba diving out there? I don't know why I'm raising my hand. I haven't. Wow. See, just a couple of you. Hey, Jake, big Jake, little Jake's mom's been out there. Yeah, he is prepared to take your job. Fantastic. Well, the divers working out there right now are kind of next level, certainly more highly trained than you or I. They are deep diving saturation divers from the Navy. So this mission is one of the first significant NOAA-Navy collaborations in the Gulf of Mexico, the deepest dive by humans for a NOAA science and restoration mission, and one of just a handful of times that saturation diving has been used at sea for a NOAA mission. So enough about me. Let's move on to our friends at sea. All right, let's see what they're doing out there on the island intervention. Hey, give them a wave. Woohoo! This is real life, folks. Fantastic. So the island intervention is a 394-foot ship out in the Gulf of Mexico right now. That's bigger than any science vessel I've ever been on. So I'm very excited to get out there. All right, hi all. The work of restoring habitats on the seafloor of Gulf of Mexico takes a lot of people with lots of different jobs. So I'd like to go down the line here and introduce yourself. Tell us about your role in this restoration work and what you've been doing on this expedition. Let's hear it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Josh. I work for Flower Garden Banks.
And,
National Marine
hang
Sanctuary.
on. Can y'all hear him? Hang on.
Hello, testing.
I can hear him in my headset very loudly. Joel,
Testing.
pause. Hello?
Okay. Hello.
Oh, Joel says it's on your side, Patrick. Testing.
Testing.
You can just keep talking in my ear, Josh. Very loud in
Testing.
my ear. Testing, testing, do a little dance. Da, da, da. Oh, we got our behind the scenes crew coming in. Save the day. I swear it worked before y'all got here. I swear.
Trying to check it out.
Hey, nice hard hat. Everybody's very safe, as you can see. I had to order a hard hat just for this mission.
Testing.
Very excited. Oh, almost. Wait, do it
Are
again.
you able to hear us there in the theater?
Still just in my ears. Okay. Hang on.
All righty. Nope. What?
I feel like if Sasha can. Yeah.
Oh, hello.
We'll
Hey.
figure it out eventually.
Hey,
Hey,
hey, did you hear the round of applause?
I did.
Did you hear? Yeah. Woohoo! They don't have to listen to me for 45 minutes. Okay, great. All right, go down the line now that we can hear you, Josh. Kick it off.
All right. Well, hey, everybody. My name is Josh. I work for Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary. And part of the restoration project, I'm helping install mooring buoys and clear some of the marine debris you're going to hear about.
Hey everyone, my name is Kelly Martin. I work for NOAA Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary as well. And I am one of the project managers, so I've helped sort of plan and coordinate and execute this whole mission, and really great to see it all come to fruition and share it with you today.
Hi, I'm Nathan Fisher. I'm part of the NEDU saturation diving team. I was the team lead on the first one, and I'm here to support anything these guys need next to me.
Hello, my name is Claire Mullaney, and I'm with the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary as well. My job title is Threat Reduction Coordinator, and on this mission, that means I'm helping to install the mooring buoys, remove the marine debris. I'm also managing some data and assisted with the logistical coordination of the mission.
Awesome. Everybody give them a round of applause. They're spending some time with us here. They're working really hard out there. They do have a giant ice cream freezer, but they're still working very long days. So I'm not sure if it's enough ice cream, but All right, so I know in past expeditions, we have had only ROVs for our deeper tasks and occasionally the tech divers at Jake's team that we talked about that can go a bit deeper than recreational scuba divers. So why did we decide to work with Navy saturation divers for this mission? Maybe Kelly can take that one since she's been doing a lot of planning here.
Yeah, sure. So this is a project that's been in planning phase sort of for many years. There are a lot of things that ROVs can do, and even on this ship, we have a very capable ROV with us. But of course, a robot arm doesn't quite have the same dexterity as a human arm and hand, and so there are some very sort of fine detail, fine scale, or sensitive activities that a diver could potentially do better than a robot. But the challenge typically with diving is the limitations on the depths that they can go. But as you have sort of talked about already, and Nate will probably talk about a bit more, the saturation system just allows them to go a lot deeper and for pretty long periods of time. So it really just opens up sort of a world of possibilities for what these divers can help us do to restore these habitats at pretty deep areas of the Gulf.
Awesome. And like you mentioned, we might be able to hear a little bit more. How is this diving different from recreational scuba diving, for example? How are you able to go that deep and how does that work?
Yeah, so basically with this system and saturation diving, we're able to go anywhere from 0 to 1,000 feet or 305 meters. So we go down instead of decompressing after each dive, we're basically able to saturate our tissue with the gas, and we don't need to decompress. We end up decompressing after the fact. So usually
And
it ends up being.
I think you guys can see right now, but on the screen, we have the living chamber, I believe, going to the diving bell. I don't know if y'all can see that on deck, but yeah. Okay, sorry, carry on. I wanted these folks to know what they're looking at here.
Yeah. Basically, so around 6 people will enter the habitat behind me, like you see. They'll eat in there, sleep in there, use the restroom, everything that they need to. There's a living chamber, and then there's also a OL or outer lock that they lock in and out, change, and then lock into the bell. And the bell, I think that you guys just saw there on the screen, is what actually lowers us to the bottom of the ocean floor. We're able to stay here anywhere from like up to 30 days usually.
Yeah, that's not a lot of space for 30 days. You said 6 people fit in there.
6 people usually, yes. Yep.
Yeah, and I think
People.
in talking about this mission, a lot of people would be like, oh, so these guys are living in a chamber underwater. But I think what's kind of cool about this system is they do actually get to come back to the boat after each dive, but they're just living in this chamber. So I don't, if you can see behind us when they put our video back on screen, there's sort of an outer lock sort of right between Nate and Claire. So we'll see them sort of hand meals in to the divers that are coming from the dining hall on the ship. So they're getting pretty good food, getting taken care of and all of that. So they're on the ship, but they're just compressed at a much deeper depth than what the rest of us are experiencing outside those living chambers.
So y'all have to really get along with each other then, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Kelly joked I couldn't do that because I talk too much. She's not wrong. Everybody would be like, get her out of here. Too much. All right. So how deep are divers going during this expedition? What's the deepest y'all are going to?
This dive right here is 400 feet. They're currently in. I think we're pressing deeper tonight, and then tomorrow is a plan 390-ish feet.
Yeah, so we actually, as we speak right now, the ROV is in the water, sort of scoping out the site for tomorrow just to make sure it's safe and we have all the information we need to inform tomorrow's dive plan. And yeah, looking at about 360 to 390. So much deeper than I ever hoped to go in the ocean for sure.
Yeah, I've only been 100 feet. Anybody been that deep before? 400 feet? What? Okay, we're gonna chat later, you two ladies. There's some badass women in this audience. All right, so I heard the divers sound kind of funny when they talk. Why is that? I've heard it before, but I want to share that with folks here.
Yeah, so normally on scuba or other diving apparatuses, you are just using compressed air, which is 79% nitrogen. So with this going deeper, we can't use nitrogen. So we use another inert gas, helium. And that's why they sound weird. It's breathing helium as our background gas.
Amazing.
It's hard to get used to, but you eventually can understand each other down there.
Fantastic. Oh, it looks like we're showing some footage here of y'all underwater. Wow. So you are still attached to the diving bell, correct? Awesome. Got some good video of that. So how long does it take to decompress once you're all done with diving? Once you're ready to get out of the living chamber?
So yeah, usually it's for every 100 feet, it's about a day plus a day. So let's say you were doing a 400-foot dive, it would be 4 days plus one, so 5 days total of decompression. If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you do while you're in there for that? Like what can you do for fun in the living chamber?
We did set up a projector, so we have a projector that's shooting through the viewport. We just set up a bed sheet and then project it onto the wall there, and you can hear. Yeah, so you'll be able to watch movies. I think that one has YouTube and a lot of different things. So we're able to catch up on some news. Yep, wasn't too bad. And then
I
read
did.
books.
Okay, you got a book. Great,
Yep.
fantastic. Glad you're not too bored in there. All right, so most importantly, for the big picture of all of this, what are all these divers doing on this expedition to help with this greater restoration goal? Kelly, you want to take that one?
Sure. So the two major objectives that we were sort of planning all of the diving aspects around were mooring installations, as Josh mentioned, and marine debris, as Claire mentioned. These are two things that we can do to sort of help protect the seafloor. In the flower gardens, we're lucky to have very healthy deep sea seafloor habitat. But by installing mooring buoys with the designs that Josh has come up with, we can hopefully prevent people who might otherwise anchor on the seafloor and drag something around that could damage the corals and other habitat there. So by installing a mooring buoy, we hope that people use that to tie up their boats rather than dropping an anchor. And then marine debris, of course, I think is something that people are probably familiar with. It's never great to have trash on the seafloor, especially if it can sort of move around as hurricanes or storms come through and sort of take out corals and other important habitat features. So Josh and Claire have both worked super hard to identify, the different types of marine debris we're going to remove, the different mooring buoys we're going to install. So yeah, it's been really cool to see all that come to fruition. And I don't know if you guys want to jump in with anything else from the planning of all that work.
Claire, picture on your buoy.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about what's going on right now. So this is actually, you're seeing footage of the removal of an old data buoy that was out there in the early 2000s to collect different data on the ocean, like wave height, temperature, things like that. But it unfortunately sank in a hurricane. And so just now, 21 years later, we're removing it. And this is an example of a large piece of debris. It was pretty heavy and stationary, but the sanctuary was worried it could become mobile in a storm again. And it also had some batteries in it. So it was super exciting. We were able to get this out. And just so you all aren't worried, this organization that has these buoys has made their anchors even heavier. So we hopefully don't have to worry about any of them sinking again. You also saw some footage of some scientists picking off critters from the marine debris. And I think that's something that's so cool about the marine debris removal on this mission is we're not just hauling up these objects and throwing them straight into the dump. All of those creatures that we pull off are going to be used for science and help to sort of, figure out what lives on these pieces of debris, and then also help to tell us what these healthy habitats look like so we can help restore those impacted areas from the spill a bit better.
Fantastic. And I think we had spoke with you yesterday on another one of our live streams. We had some folks from the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, right? So they're putting some creatures into collection. So what are some of your favorite creatures you've seen come off the marine debris? What's some of the neatest stuff you've seen? And maybe, or what the Smithsonian folks have seen, if you've seen them get very excited about something.
Yeah, I think the one that really stands out to me is we had a few eels that were actually in the Tabs buoy. So we were fortunately able to release a couple of them back into the ocean, but one was kept as a specimen for science. I think the Smithsonian folks have been pretty excited about some of the crabs they've been able to collect. We've gotten a lot of crabs. We have a big crab enthusiast on the Smithsonian staff. He wears a crab bandana as he sort of processes the crabs that come up. So I think that's one thing that they've been super excited about.
That was definitely my favorite, the sponge crab wearing the giant sponge hat.
Yeah, there was a crab that had a giant sponge hat, and not to go into a series of stories about crabs, but there was another crab yesterday that actually sort of tried to battle the ROV and like locked onto the ROV and, came up with it. So that, was taken as a specimen for science as well.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things too about the critters that are coming off of the marine debris is these are things that are often really stuck to the seafloor, like under rocks and things like that. And so it's not something that would be very easy to sample. We actually have been able to get some of these critters thanks to the divers and the ability to use their hands. But things like ROVs sometimes have trouble collecting those things that are really sort of stuck on the seafloor. And so seeing some of the photos that the Smithsonian folks are taking of these specimens to document them, it's just things that you like normally would never get the chance to see. So it's been really exciting to just see all the different variety of life that have come up with these different pieces of debris, and just from the work that the divers have done, sort of just sampling on the seafloor as well.
Amazing. That's really, really cool. So I know aside from finding them opportunistically on debris, the science team is collecting specimens of coral and other specific creatures as part of this expedition. So why are they collecting those that we're actually looking for? And how does this help inform the restoration work? How is this helping support that restoration work?
I think a lot of the reasons are really the same. It's the same ultimate goal, or one of the same ultimate goals, as the critters we're pulling off of the marine debris. It's just to see in this reference area, as Sasha described, in this healthy reef habitat, to get an idea of what the seafloor looks like, what the ecosystem looks like there. So then that can help inform our goals for those areas impacted by the spill. It's just, different ways of doing that, whether we come across something with the ROV, whether we have divers go around in a site to pick out different samples and be able to be a little more dexterous, or whether we're just scraping whatever we can find off of a piece of marine debris. And Sasha, if we have time, I did bring a little show and tell here to show everyone some pieces of marine debris, if it's not going to take too much time.
Everybody want to see that? I want to see that. Oh yeah, people want to see that. Let's show it. We got time. Show and tell. What did Claire bring to school?
So this object that you're about to see, we're not quite sure what it is. It was found opportunistically by an ROV, the ROV last night. And they were able to, see those bits of plastic peeking through and determine that it was, it wasn't natural, and take it up off of the reef. And I'm not sure if the Smithsonian folks have scraped things off of this yet and had their way with it. It kind of looks still pretty intact. So that's an example of a smaller object.
It looks like there's a lot of layers for those scientists to get through.
Yeah. And then what Claire's grabbing here is a larger piece that we've had now for maybe about a week and a half. So when this first came up, yeah, it's taller than Claire. When this first came up, it was like so vividly colored in like orange and green and red and all these different living things. But now it's been sitting in the sun for a few days and sort of getting baked. But the Smithsonian folks were able to collect a lot of very, very cool, unique samples that, we had them coming away from this saying we might have just found a new species of sponge potentially. And, it'll take time to confirm all of that and sort of figure out what exactly they found. But yeah, it's been very, very exciting.
Was that metal or plastic?
It's metal. It actually had a smoke alarm attached to it when we brought it up. So it's still sort of a mystery, like what it actually came from, but the smoke alarm peeled off and there were like some things attached to the back of it that got sampled as well. So it's kind of like I don't know, it's like a scavenger hunt almost.
Yeah. Sounds like it might have been part of a ship or something. Incredible. So to collect things, since you are in and around the sanctuary, do scientists need special permission to do that? How are we able to do that out there?
Yeah, so we did go through or receive a number of permits from the sanctuary in order to do this work. So don't try this at home, folks. Don't come out to the sanctuary and just grab things off the floor. You do have to get special permits to do this type of work. But it's been a really great collaboration with the sanctuary. Obviously, the three of us all work for the sanctuary, but a number of our partners on board, again, have just all been collaborating together to make this work happen. And I think it's benefiting the sanctuary as well as all of this restoration work. So it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, awesome. I know that during this expedition, also some of our partners from Audubon Aquarium, for example, in New Orleans, were out to help collect corals for the coral labs. Like I mentioned, one of the restoration projects focuses on learning more about how these corals grow and reproduce and supporting their reproduction so we can put more colonies back out into the wild, like we mentioned that Jake's team's helping with. So lots of cool stuff going on. Are the divers helping with the specimen collection as well, or just the marine debris removal?
Yeah, so they've in some cases accomplished tasks fast enough that we've been able to sort of turn them on to sampling instead. And then they've also been able to spear some lionfish. So Josh, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
So
Let's hear about
with one of the
lionfish.
cool things that everybody wants to hear about is lionfish. And so back to the permitting, Flower Gardens can issue a permit if you receive a class. And so the Navy divers actually had to get education about how to spear lionfish, not to spear the coral and everything else. And then we turn them loose underwater with guidance. And oh my God, they do great. But yeah, they were Navy divers using zookeepers and spears and collecting the specimens so that we can look into all the different data from fin clips and genetics with our partners, as well as just total length, standard length. We have a tally going amongst which diver is going to collect the most specimens. And so we're not done yet, but I can say that there were some collected today at 305 feet deep. So
Whoa.
amazing colors coming in and just incredible collaborative efforts by both Navy divers and the scientists help studying them.
And why do we want to get rid of the lionfish? I don't think we touched on that quite yet.
Yeah, so if you aren't familiar with lionfish, they are an invasive species, meaning they're not native to this area. Unfortunately, in the areas where they are invasive, they tend to eat a lot of the native fish, which is not great for the health of that ecosystem. And so there's been a lot of efforts in shallower waters to remove lionfish. You may have even heard about eating them. But in deeper waters, it's a lot, just for the same reason, it's hard to get down and do these other restoration tasks in deeper waters. It's the same with going down that deep and spearing lionfish. It's just not something that we get the opportunity to do very often. So this, again, in addition to all the other work the divers have been doing, it's another great opportunity to sort of add another, check another box of like, what else can we have them do to help with this restoration? And I think Nate actually got to spear a few. Maybe you can share your experience of the lionfish derby.
I did, yeah. So us being from Florida and Panama City, we obviously have a lot of good spear fishing and fishing spots there. But this was the first time that I've got to go this deep and been able to do it. So it's been absolutely amazing. It was fun. Being able to spend 4 hours down there just kind of hunting around was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And it
The
is great to
lionfish
have.
that we're getting were quite large. So
Yep.
it was very cool to see these really large specimens come up. And again, just as Josh mentioned earlier, spearing is not typically allowed in the sanctuary. So another, do not do this on your own time without special permission from the sanctuary. But when those opportunities do arise, it's very cool to get that work done.
Yeah, very, very cool. And it's great to be able to address that other component of this restoration work is removing some of those threats. And with lionfish being invasive species, it's very possible they can take food sources away from some of the creatures down there that we want to protect. So awesome. All right, let's see what else we have here. I feel like we've squeezed a lot in. So we're gonna go ahead and see if we have questions from the audience now. We have time with our friends here on the ship. Anybody have questions? Oh, okay, hi. Hi. Good. Good question. We have an underwater documentary filmmaker up here, one of our local news guys, and he wants to know if you're doing any operations at night, and if so, what kind of lights do you use when you're diving down there? How can you see at those depths?
On this specific one, we haven't done late night dives. We usually keep it's during the daylight hours, but we do have a lot of bright LEDs that we use down on the bell and actually on the divers tap themselves. So we got a lot of good light sources.
Yeah, we've been using the ROV at night as well, just sort of taking advantage of that time. And they have a lot of bright strobes and other things on there to sort of illuminate the seafloor so we can get good videos, good pictures, and sort of help them see as they're maybe trying to collect a sample or whatever other work they're doing. So yeah, during the day, there has been a good amount of sunlight available for the divers, which is, always pretty crazy to see when you think about how deep they are. But just a reminder that, that sunlight reaches a bit farther than you might expect.
Yeah, and it looks like we have a little video here of the ROV operators working in the ROV van. So I know we're doing a lot of ROV operations at night, right, Kelly?
Yeah. Pretty much every night, unless we're actively transiting from one site to another. And that in that case, everything's on board. But if we're not transiting, we almost certainly will have the ROV in the water, either scouting out a site for the next day's dive so that we have all the information prepared for the divers for their objectives, or, you know, running transects so they can sort of collect information about the seafloor, collect samples of, you know, little critters, biological samples. They helped us place some of the moorings as well. So yeah, the ROV and the saturation divers have worked really well together on this mission.
I'm not sure if it's been mentioned specifically, but we also are able to have the ROV in the water at the same time as the divers, sometimes sort of with its eye on them to make sure everything is okay. But once they're kind of safely down, we're able to take the ROV out at the same time and sort of, you know, have the ROV and the divers tag team our objectives for that day. So that's been really cool as well.
That's awesome. And they're getting great video footage of the divers for our education outreach. So I'm very excited to see that. All right. Any other questions we got here? Yes, go ahead. Great question. I don't know if you could hear that, but they asked what kind of educational background brought y'all to each of your positions getting into this work. Oh, also, when Josh mentioned zookeeper, he didn't mean like somebody that works at Moody Gardens. He means a little device that they put the lionfish in. I wanted to clarify, being a former zookeeper, I wanted to clarify that. All right, go for it.
I actually have quite a diverse background from military, and science was something I volunteered to help out with, and have slowly become part of the research team. Found a love for it, so I'm new to the science side of it, but it's a wonderful thing.
I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in sort of marine policy or ocean policy and natural resource management. So that led pretty naturally to where I am today working for NOAA.
Yeah, so obviously in the Navy, I had to go through dive school as far as the dive training and certifications. And then before I got in the Navy, I got a welding degree. So basically a lot of this system that you see behind us required many, many welds to keep it safe at sea.
Very impressive
I
work.
also have a bit of a more traditional background, similar to Kelly. I did my undergrad in marine or in just biology, and then I went and got my master's in environmental management and specifically coastal management. So yeah, also led pretty naturally to this work.
Awesome. And these folks already heard how I got here. I was a Moody Gardens biologist for 5 years. And then I worked for a local nonprofit conservation organization, Galveston Bay Foundation. We have some friends from there in the audience. Woo woo. And then from there, getting into conservation education and outreach, which is how I landed in this position with National Marine Sanctuary Foundation. We have a very cool, diverse team. You know, just to loop back to the restoration work, it takes a ton of collaboration. There are so many people involved with so many specialties and skill sets. It's really incredible to see all these different folks come together and work together, especially on an expedition like this. Very cool. All right, other questions? Yes.
Out the compacts and the CTD side.
What are some of the dangers that the divers deal with? I know these folks here are very focused on safety.
Yeah, so as far as safety, there's a lot of safety concerns, obviously, on board the topside personnel, making sure nobody trips and falls, the hard hats, all that normal stuff. I guess down there's plenty of checklists we go through. We got to watch for any signs of contaminated atmosphere. As far as down there on the bottom, just dangerous marine life, keeping track of your other diver, your buddy diver, staying with him. And then the up and over phase on the actual dive bell, a big portion. There's a lot of hydraulics moving, a lot of moving parts where you could get pinched or hurt somewhere. So safety is definitely a big deal that we train on constantly. So
yeah, this whole ship is typically used to doing more like oil and gas industry work. And so they are often doing very dangerous things. And so, you know, that's why you see us wearing our hard hats. There's all kinds of sort of safety regulations and rules in place to make sure everyone is doing the right thing, being careful, communicating about all of the different things we're doing and staying safe while we're out here.
Yeah, and right now on the screen, you can see the dive bell coming up through the moon pool, all fun words. And the moon pool is basically a big pool in the middle of the ship, right? That you can put the diving bell down through, which is what y'all are seeing it come up right now. That's pretty wild. I can't wait to see that. And Josh also has dive medic training, right, Josh? So you support some of the National Marine Sanctuary, the Flower Garden Banks diving as well, right?
I do. That's one of my duties is the dive medical technician working with hyperbaric support in case there's a diving related injury, which I've learned a lot from the Navy team here because that's a very large hyperbaric chamber in some sense. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on around here, cranes and all kinds of gadgets they're using and things like that we have to be careful about. But it's been an amazing adventure so far.
Awesome. All right, another question out there? Yes. Yes. Oh, question about that mysterious sponge. So she was asking if when you guys found the potentially new species of sponge that Smithsonian thought was a new species, whereabouts was that in the sanctuary, and when will we know if that was a new species and what it's called? I'm sure that's like a really long process.
We have been out here for about 2 weeks now, and it has been quite a whirlwind. So I wish I remembered the exact bank that happened at, but we would have to go back and look at our logs. Our brains are just packed with all of everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks, but it was in one of the shallower dives. So these dives were going to, as we said, about 390. Those are earlier dives. We are a little shallower, 160 or so, 200. So it wasn't quite as deep as we are now. But yeah, I mean, so from here, all of the samples that we've collected for the Smithsonian are still on the ship. They're going to come back to port with us. They go through a very sort of special packing process to get them shipped back to Washington, D.C. I think some of them are actually going to be too big to ship. So they're going to get driven to Florida. And then at some point, someone from Washington, D.C. is going to drive down to Florida to get them. So some will get there sooner than others. And then, yeah, they go through all sorts of, sort of analyses once they get to the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. If you ever get a chance to go to D.C., go check out the National Museum of Natural History, and you can just sort of see just a sampling of some of the specimens they have at the museum. But then they have a whole other facility sort of off-site that has hallways upon hallways of these specimens that sort of, yeah, you're seeing pictures here. That provide a record of, the living things that exist on this planet. And so it's very cool that these specimens will go contribute to that. And yeah, I can't say I know the exact timeline for how long it takes them to really, identify the exact species. If it is in fact a new species, I do think that takes, a little while to sort of get that published in the literature and, officially declared a new species. So I wouldn't, hold your breath or anything, but hopefully we find out soon sort of, all the different things that we discovered and found on this mission.
Yeah, and I'm sure if it is a new species in the sanctuary, the folks at Flower Garden Banks will be first to know, and they will probably post about it and be very excited to share that information. So, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Oh, one of my favorite things is going behind the scenes at the Smithsonian, which I do get to do with this project, which has been a real highlight. Awesome. Any other questions out there? Yes. In addition to the lionfish, are there any other invasive species you're dealing with on this expedition or that you'd like to mention that are in the sanctuary?
There aren't any other invasive species that we're dealing with on this mission. Another invasive species in the Gulf that has kind of been on our radar is called orange cup coral. We're anticipating that could be a lot more difficult to remove. It's, sessile, so it doesn't move. You have to scrape it off. We've heard that removal can be kind of difficult and it can grow back. So it's just a little bit, I don't know, those waters are a little bit less tested than lionfish, which have been invasive since the early 2000s and have this easy and established method of removing them through spearfishing. So yeah, hopefully hope to maybe deal with that at one point, but not on this mission, unfortunately.
Good question. Anybody else? The question was, how many instances of stony coral tissue loss disease have you all encountered? But I know that we are operating at deeper depths. So we're in the mesophotic zone, which is deeper than 160 feet. So the stony coral is going to be at those shallower depths. So we're not quite in those regions yet. But Kelly, Claire, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong there.
No, I mean, we are primarily dealing with what we call octocorals, which are different than the corals that you typically find when you're, snorkeling or recreationally scuba diving. And so, yeah, that is not something we're dealing with on this mission, luckily, but you should go talk to the Flower Gardens folks who are there at Moody Gardens. And I'm sure they can tell you all about the work that the Flower Gardens team are doing to sort of monitor for that and keep an eye out for that disease.
All right, you have another one? Good question. They said, even though this is a protected area, a lot of the areas that you're operating in there in the sanctuary, has there been anything that surprised you as far as human impacts related things you've seen while you're in that area?
I mean, it's sort of along the same thread of what we've already been talking about, but I guess I was surprised, the Flower Gardens has a pretty extensive marine debris data set in the deep sea. They've taken a lot of video footage and recorded marine debris as they see it. They've gone a lot of places in the sanctuary. I know a lot of marine debris is out there, and even the whole Flower Gardens area isn't explored, especially the part of the sanctuary that was recently expanded. But I was a bit surprised by how many marine debris items we sort of spontaneously came across. It's not like it was a ton or anything, but it's happened fairly regularly that we see something that either the ROV, can't pick up because it's too stuck, or something like the items I showed you that they're able to just sort of pluck off the bottom. So yeah, I was surprised by those sort of additions to that already pretty comprehensive data set.
Yeah, and I don't know if
go
this
ahead,
is
Kelly.
so much, human impacts, but I think just kind of speaking to that also is like the extent to which we're still learning what's on the seafloor in so many of these places. Despite how much work has been done to document these areas, there's still so much more we have to learn. And, finding marine debris that we didn't know was there previously is sort of just one example of that. So that's been really eye-opening for me, is, we feel like we have a pretty good handle on what's in the sanctuary, and to some extent we do, but to another extent, there's a lot we still have to learn. So that's been cool to sort of add to that knowledge through this mission.
Yeah, and I'll also mention one of our expeditions earlier in the year, we were operating at about 5,000 feet, not in the sanctuary, but another area. And there was just a shoe on the seafloor as we were doing a telepresence broadcast. And I said, hang on, let me see that ROV footage. Is that a shoe? Yeah, there was a shoe down there. So it's it can be kind of wild when you see things that deep still coming from land. Any other questions? Just a couple more for wrap up. Yeah. That's the one out off Bolivar, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Great question. So they were mentioning a local oil spill that we have seen here off the coast of Bolivar from a rig, which I believe is no longer in use. And we've had a lot of local folks post about it, especially fishermen, boaters. How does something like that affect these coral habitats, or even potentially the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary? And what's our restoration work doing to help with, future impacts in the Gulf, like related to oil and gas, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can speak to how that specific oil spill might impact these habitats, because I'm not super familiar with exactly where that's located and sort of, what assessment of potential damage has been done in that case. But I think what is really exciting about this work is that, obviously we're doing it as a result of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. But we're breaking a lot of ground here. There's not really many other instances that our teams have been able to look to for examples on how to do this type of restoration at these depths. So we're kind of creating these new restoration techniques as we go. So if, hopefully not, but if there is another oil spill in the future, hopefully we're better prepared to respond to that with these restoration techniques that we've established through these projects. So, that is sort of a hope for the future, that, if worst case scenario, something happens again, we'll be better prepared at that point.
Yeah, and
another,
Kelly is, go ahead, Claire.
I just wanted to add from the threat reduction angle, one sort of, potentially longer term, larger goal is to address some of those like leaking and abandoned oil and gas, some of those different types of infrastructure like pipelines or old wells. And that's definitely something that, it's not like a lionfish, you know, we can't just go in and spear one and sort of be on our way, but it's a little bit more complicated. But yeah, hoping that is in the long-term goal of the project as a potential threat, to, you know, try to prevent this from happening again, at least from inactive wells.
Yes, excellent. And I know that Kelly's going to be working, Kelly and Claire are both working with management entities down the line, because a lot of the restoration projects that are part of this work are also creating those better maps of the Northern Gulf of Mexico, visualizing the habitat. So using the ROV footage to see what's out there and where it is, so we can get a really good big picture of the Northern Gulf of Mexico that we really didn't have before, such a comprehensive view of the Northern Gulf of Mexico, which can help, you know, inform things in the future. So, any other questions before we wrap up? Okay, we got one more. Good question. He was asking about what determines what's good and bad as far as marine debris out in the Gulf of Mexico, and referring to, for example, the Rigs to Reef program or artificial reef programs. How do we know that what you're looking at and what you're targeting to remove isn't part of a purposeful artificial reef? So maybe Claire, you can speak to like how you identify these marine debris targets and how you would know if that was something that was put there on purpose.
Yeah, so in the data set that we review ahead of time, a lot of times it's pretty clear, at least whether it's something that is there accidentally or something that we're at least not sure about and need to investigate more. So, you know, for the couple of larger marine debris targets that we have on this cruise, we reached out to organizations, we double checked that, you know, we were okay to go in, and we asked for more information on the target. For items that we come upon spontaneously, obviously have to tread much more carefully. Stuff like the things like the debris that we showed you, you know, it was pretty clear that it wasn't part of a research project. It was just kind of dropped there haphazardly laying on the seafloor. Sometimes it's even like bottles or things like that, it's very clear, just like human use items. But, you know, we have seen other things that when you come across something spontaneously, like even if there is a tiny question in your mind that it might be there purposefully, or you shouldn't disturb it. Yeah, I think we just err on the side of documenting it, making sure we have great data on it, and putting it in a database to potentially investigate later as a potential target.
Yeah, I mean, another thing that I think Claire spent a lot of time working on ahead of this mission was looking at our potential debris targets and trying to evaluate, would we do more damage by removing it than we do by leaving it there? So there, in some cases, depending on how long a piece of debris has been on the seafloor, it might have a lot of, you know, really important corals or something growing on it, or in the act of sort of getting in there to remove it, you disturb a lot of the seafloor around the item. So that was definitely a consideration in sort of picking these different targets. Where could we, you know, remove pieces of debris that we knew weren't there on purpose, that posed a potential threat to the habitat, and we also wouldn't be doing more damage by going there and removing it. So that's an important consideration as well.
And there's not a lot of research on that topic currently. So I think we're all hoping that'll be one of the kind of byproducts of this work, is maybe trying to define a little bit better the characteristics of a piece of debris that, you know, should be left versus should be removed. And some of them are pretty clear, you know, if something is like completely decayed, stuck to the seafloor, but other times the line is a little bit harder to figure out. So yeah, definitely constantly thinking about that and hoping to have more details on that in the years to come.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank y'all for joining us on board and taking so much time today. Yes, Jake, did you have a question? Sure. Yeah. Round of applause for folks on board. Awesome. That was a big thank you from Jake, if you couldn't tell. Awesome. And Claire, Taylor here wants you to know that your cat's doing great, by the way. O'Brien is doing great.
Thank you so much, Taylor. I was missing him today.
Oh, he's a sweet boy. Oh, well, thanks so much for spending some time with us today. I'm very excited to see y'all in a couple days. I get to come on that wild basket crane thing from a boat onto another boat. So that'll be exciting. And yeah, don't forget, folks, to visit our tables outside, learn more about the diving. And I appreciate all y'all on board taking the time. I know you're working really hard. And I know this mission had a lot of moving parts, but it seems like all the planning and collaboration has been well worth the effort. So thanks so much. And maybe as these folks are filing out, we can show them an opportunity to take a survey about our telepresence event today. So we have a little QR code here. We can pop up on the screen, say bye to our friends on board. See ya. Oh, mobile cam angle. Hey, look at that. Our friends at URI, University of Rhode Island's Inner Space Center out there, working the cameras, getting all the technology set up. So big thanks to them as well. This is the donation code actually for Moody Gardens Conservation Fund, since they hosted this free event for us. So if you want to save that link as well. And then we have another QR code we can pop up here in a moment. That is a survey for this experience that y'all had. And then if you do have any other questions, please feel free to come on down. I'll be heading outside into the lobby in just a couple minutes so we can chat more. Joel, are we able to pull up the Zoom again real quick so we can show that QR code for them? Thanks, big thanks again to Moody Gardens for providing us this space and letting y'all come in here for free to connect with this work that is very close to your community here in Galveston with the Deepwater Horizon oil spill affecting all 5 Gulf states. We really want to try to give back and connect this work to everyone here along the Gulf. All right, so the survey there is on the right-hand side. I noted it only takes 2 minutes to complete because I know we're all very busy. And on the left, there's our homepage to learn more about these projects. There's also the homepage QR code is out at the Flower Garden Banks National Marine Sanctuary booth as well. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Sure. Good. Thanks. I'll go out there in just a moment as I close this up. Bye. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. Thank you. Oh, hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
I think you know, but Chris was saying.